It's the Locked On Flyers podcast for Friday, November 21st, your daily dose of Flyers news, analysis, and high quality content that could not be less surprised that the Flyers Blues went to overtime.
We called it.
Your Locked On Flyers, your daily podcast on the Philadelphia Flyers. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Hello and welcome to Locked On Flyers, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, now the number one sports podcast network. I am Rachel Donner. I've been podcasting about the Flyers, the NHL, and hockey for a decade, and I'm here with prospect expert and Flyers credentialed reporter for 20 years, Russ Cohen. To keep up with our latest episodes and Flyers news, you can find us at Locked On Flyers on Instagram, Threads, Blue Sky, and Twitter. And sure enough, a overtime game between the Philadelphia Flyers and St. Louis Blues with a happy ending again. This time in overtime, didn't take a shootout to win this one, and that was mostly due to the heroics of Dan Vladar in net, you would say.
Yeah, no question. I mean, he made a couple of big sprawling saves in that game. There's no question that was one of the games for sure. It also helps the Blues are 0-6 now in overtime.
Yeah, rough goings for them.
But I will tell you this is the interesting thing in perspective, though. So, like, the Blues weren't mad about that loss because it is a road point. They got a point against Toronto before that. So, like Justin Falk talked about it, and he feels like they're on track to at least getting on track. Whereas if the Flyers would have lost that one because they're the home team, like, it's a different feel. So that is, the difference there.
Yeah, we're going to get into later in the show some talk about Matvei Michkov's development as it relates to Ivan Demidov up in
Yes.
Montreal, as well as preview the game against the Devils taking place tomorrow. But yeah, I think, it is a really interesting game because the two things that Rick Tocchet emphasized in this myriad of days and practices they had off in between the last game and this one was we don't want to get off to a slow start and we don't want to get hemmed in defensively. And what happened early in this game? They got hemmed in
They
defensively.
did.
They went down 2 goals. And I would not necessarily call it a slow start. I said in our little post game recap video that's up on YouTube that it was a medium start with a lack of finish. And I stand by that because they did have a tremendous, number of chances there. They just could not put it together to get it to go. And then they got hemmed in a little bit more after that.
Yeah, no, I think that's accurate. I think there was a little lack of concentration at the very beginning. Instant icing. Drysdale has a turnover. All of a sudden, the Blues get a clear look right to start the game. Not the way you want to start off. It went better than that. The interesting thing was, though, Kyle Dubas and Doug Armstrong and some of the Hockey Canada guys were there. So really good showing for Travis Sanheim, and I think may have, cemented himself a place on that team. Whereas on the flip side, Travis Konechny missing that open shot, not great.
Yeah, and obviously we talked about that earlier this week with
Yes.
where the guys that were trying to make their national teams for the Olympics stood, and we mentioned that for both the Travi, it was a very important stretch of games coming up
Yeah, I
because
didn't know. I didn't even think about with the Blues coming in that they would have like a Hockey Canada kind of get together, but they did. And so, yeah. Now, on the plus side, too, Dan Vladar definitely cemented himself. I mean, he was going to make it anyhow, and Rodrigo Abels was going to make it anyhow. But, heck of a goal by him simply because we really don't know if that was left over from a shift or was that a change made by Tocchet simply because Cates ended up on the fourth line that like the shift after. So I don't know, but it was a good play.
Yeah, it seemed to be just like a weird spot in the rotation because of the way
Okay.
the shifts were coming through at that point. But I do want to continue and say with Travis Konechny and Travis Sanheim, both of them were at critical junctions, and this stretch of games were important in terms
Yes,
of if they were going to have a chance to make Team Canada. And you're right about Travis Konechny. I think a little bumpy there for him. Now he did get the assist on that game winner,
he
and
did.
it was a really good little quick pass to spring Travis Sanheim. But what a goal! What a goal for him to make
It
at
was
such a
terrific.
critical time. It was an excellent shot, and when Travis Sanheim skates in open ice like that, it is a joy to behold, I must say.
Yeah, no question. He was decisive. And actually, to be fair, I thought Sean Couturier was too close for him to even think about passing it to him. Like, I don't know what he was thinking, but he got way too close. So Sanheim was smart by just keeping it and shooting it. A couple minutes, maybe like 6, 7 minutes earlier in that game, I didn't understand why Trevor Zegras, who had a break and could have had an open shot, passed the puck back and he lost it. It's like, we're in an era now where, and especially for this team, where goal scoring comes at a premium. You can't be unselfish like that. It used to be great to be unselfish. Now, not as great.
Yeah, I kind of get what Zegras was thinking at that time, but I think you're right. Maybe he should have shot it, and maybe Owen Tippett should have hit the net on the shot that
Yeah,
he
well,
had.
that's the thing. It's like you got to know who you're giving it to, and you're trying to help out your teammate. I get that, but sometimes it's like, you know what? Just take the shot.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, one of the things we talked about coming into this game as well was the line changes that
Hmm.
took place with kind of breaking up the Cates line and putting Travis Konechny on it and moving Brink onto the line with Michkov and Couturier. And I have to say, it's hard to tell if it worked or not, just because everybody except the fourth line got off to that medium start.
Right.
And so I do want to see it for another game just to
That's
see
fair.
if they can, get off to a better start and get some jump, because I think that Konechny is definitely going to be itching to make up for the missed opportunities he had this time around. And Tyson Forster, with that tremendous shot he
Yeah, it
has,
was a great shot.
um, really good to get him back on the board
Hmm.
after coming back from the injury and slotting back into the lineup. I think that really shows some confidence there in his game, and that could in turn help Travis Konechny.
Yeah, I think so. And I think that's something where, Forster can build on it. I think, Emil Andre had a game you could build on too.
Yep.
Again, people might have gotten mad that he, had the penalty before the period ended, but he was kind of covering for somebody else and really had to take that penalty. There wasn't really a choice. But there was a point where he blocked a shot into his chest, and that definitely hurt him a little bit. And he made some offense happen. He did. And that's those are the things he can do. And at this point, like he was better than Noah Juleson. Juleson did not have a good
Oh,
game.
no, he did not. And yeah, I think Emil Andre definitely, again, other than that penalty, had a really good game
He did.
across the board. And I think that it's something that's fixable. It's not something that's insurmountable with Emil
No,
Andre. And
I
so
agree.
you keep playing them at this point for sure. I still want to see them mix some other stuff up like we talked about earlier this week, but I do think on average, it was a better defensive effort in the third period,
It was.
of course. And I think that overall, the Flyers' third period version of themselves needs to show up in the first period against New Jersey
Yeah, the
tomorrow.
the ultimate fix, and I don't know how long it's going to take Rick Tocchet to come to this conclusion, but he needs to put Emil Andre on the power play and just take Cam York off the power play. He is a puck distributor on the power play. He doesn't want to shoot. If he shoot, he misses the net. And when there's times that he can shoot, he won't shoot. And I think we've seen this before. Like, he's been on the team long enough.
Right. Now, one of the other interesting things, we talked about Abel's having a really good game and he had
Hmm.
multiple chances, right?
Yep.
I think, like, could you imagine if Gurbenkin was out there instead of Delorier?
Yeah, I mean, it just would give a different dynamic to that line,
Yeah.
but there's something that Rick Tocchet feels like against a big team, you have to put Delorier, but like he's playing 6 minutes. Like what's the impact going to be there? The puck basically dies between him and Hathaway. It never gets to Obels when he's on that line. And
Yeah,
he
and we
can make
noticed what happened when it was accidentally not those two out there with
right.
him, right?
It's a big difference. Yeah. So I just feel like they've made the fourth line like an anchor instead of like an energy line. All occasionally, yes, occasionally they will cycle the puck well, but it doesn't really go anywhere. How many points has the fourth line actually produced this year? Not much.
Not much at all. That is an excellent point. But all's well that ends well with this
Yeah, I mean
one
they got the
for
2 points.
sure.
Yep.
Yeah, they got the 2 points. They got some confidence back, and I think it's really important after a short break like that with 3-4 days off
Yes.
in between to get that win and reestablish yourself so
Hmm.
that you can head into the next series of games, which are gonna come a little bit faster,
Yeah.
with around the holidays and stuff. I think it's important to set the tone correctly, and maybe they didn't do it in the first and second period, but they certainly did in the third. They
They did.
certainly did to some degree in overtime. I think the possession could have been a little better in
Yeah.
overtime, but ultimately it ended on a very good note. Excited about that. And we are going to talk about Matvei Michkov and his development. And he was a little quiet at times in this
He
game,
was.
and we're going to talk about maybe why that is and what to do to fix it coming up next. Most people cannot name all of their investments or financial accounts or even what they're worth, whether it's 401ks, properties, or other kinds of investments. And when you don't have the full picture, you can end up leaving money on the table. And that is why there is Monarch. It's an all in one personal finance tool that brings your entire financial life together in one clean, easy to use interface on your laptop or your phone. Monarch is built for people with busy lives. If you put off organizing your finances, Monarch is for you. Monarch does the heavy lifting where you can link all your accounts in minutes, see clear data visuals, get smart categorization of your spending, and you'll finally feel in control of your money without ever touching a spreadsheet. Monarch helps you notice inefficient investment allocations and discover forgotten 401ks from past jobs to help you save even more money so you can then turn it around and reinvest. Don't let financial opportunities slip through the cracks. Use code LOCKEDONNHL at monarch.com in your browser for half off your first year. That's 50% off your first year at monarch.com with code LOCKEDONNHL. Thanks for making Locked On Flyers your first listen of the day. And thanks for making Locked On the number one sports podcast network. On our Monday show, we will, of course, recap Flyers versus Devils, which we're going to talk about later in the show. We'll have a brand new nemesis of the week, as we do each and every Monday, and so much more. So, Russ, we've been talking a lot about Matvei Michkov
Mhm.
recently, as he is an important part of the Flyers rebuild in the future. And, he's had some ups and downs in both of the seasons he's played so far. And one of the things that we've emphasized is the player development process and what that should look like for him. And there are clues to that and what a good path might be up in Montreal with Demidov.
Mhm.
And so, like, where are the developmental differences that you see thus far?
Yeah, I mean, and that's all I'm going to talk about. Like I've talked about the players before, and people know my opinion about that. So the differences that I see, there's a couple. The first one is it took Demidov a little time to get onto the first power play, but ever since he did, he has stuck, and he gets more power play time than Matvei Michkov. Now he is a rookie, and he's on their top power play. Matvei Michkov is not a rookie, and he is not on the Flyers' top power play. Although at times their second power play masqueraded as the top power play, but he doesn't get those top power play minutes. So
Right.
why? Like, again, these are two comparable players. These are guys that took similar paths. He's a year younger, and they're giving him more responsibility. Why?
Yeah, I mean, it is interesting. You look at Demidov has an average of 2 minutes and 32 seconds of power play time per game. Michkov is at 209. And I think, on its face, that may not seem like a lot, but if you add
But it's
that
an
up,
average, right? Yeah.
right, exactly. And so if you add that up, that is several minutes of power play time over the course of the season so far, even 15 to 20 games in, it is a big deal.
It
And
equals points. When you're talking about
exactly.
players like this equals part of the point difference between the two players.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that when you look at the effectiveness of the players, like you can actually dig into some of their numbers at 5-on-5, right?
Mhm,
And Michkov comes out ahead in a lot of the raw numbers, right? Or your Corsi
mhm,
numbers, right? You look at Corsi 4% overall at 5-on-5, you know, Michkov is at 51.39%. This is according to Natural Stat Trick. And Demidov is at 43.91. So huge difference here.
mhm.
But the power play is critical
It
in the
is.
difference here between the two because Michkov is supposed to be contributing on the power play.
Yeah, I mean, that's a bread and butter of his game. So that's something where you see that and you're like, I mean, he's a year older. We can no longer use the he didn't come in perfect shape in camp excuse. That's, we're 20 games in now. Like that's enough of that. That's not a factor anymore. So, okay, so that's part of it. And then it's overall minutes. Like Demidov averages more minutes.
Yep.
So then when you start looking at the game logs, like Demidov's last 2 games, he has played over 18 minutes a game. I don't think Michkov's played 18 minutes at all this year. I
And
can't
I think there
remember.
was 1 or 2 games.
Maybe
But
1? Okay.
yeah.
Never 2 in a row. No way.
No, that is for sure. And, and that does exactly translate because when you're successful on the power play, that does translate to the rest of your game,
Yeah.
right?
Gives you
We've
confidence.
seen that. Exactly. Exactly. And so when you look at 5-on-5 in terms of the actual numbers, not just the back end event statistics, like I've mentioned so far, you look at the goals for per 60 between the two at 5-on-5, Michkov is at 2.76 and Demidov is at 3.8. That is a huge, huge difference.
Yeah. I mean, that's a big difference. And just if you look at just something as simple as power play goals, like right now, Michkov is on pace for like 5,
Mhm.
5 or 6. And I think he'll do better than that. But that's what he's on pace for. And that's something where it's like that could be better. Now, Demidov isn't as big of a goal scorer. So the fact that he only
Right.
has 1 also, not that big a deal, but he has 5 assists. And so that's where, that's where the power plays probably differ. But Michkov, like this is the inexplicable part. You could look at his point total and come up with various reasons, right? You can't come up with a reason why he has 3 power play points on the season so far. The way this guy plays, that is hard to interpret in any possible way.
Yeah, it is kind of confounding in a lot of ways because you look at like the scoring chance differential
Mhm.
and Demidov is so much better than Michkov on the power play. But at 5-on-5, Michkov is better, but it's not translating to actual points on the
Not getting
board
points on
here.
the board, right?
Yeah. It is really remarkable, and I think part of that is also the context of the 2 teams and how player development has been handled between the
And I
2
think that's a big key
guys.
because honestly, you should not look at the Canadians on face value roster wise and say, well, they're just ahead of the Flyers naturally. Actually, they're right about in the same spot, not point wise, but where they are in rebuilds, where they are in developing their team. They
Yeah, I
should
mean,
be
I'd
right
say
around
they're
the
a
same
year
spot.
ahead of the Flyers from a rebuild perspective, right?
Okay. I mean, I guess you could say that, but they seem further ahead than that.
They do seem further ahead, but as far as the practicality of it, I think they're 1 year ahead in terms of the actual schedule, but in terms of the results, they're maybe a year and a half to 2 years
Right.
ahead of the Flyers there, and that certainly has a lot to do with it, for sure. You look at some of the personnel that he's playing with versus who Michkov is playing with, but I think you look at at that and you say, well, the other personnel that Demidov gets to skate with are actually producing in a way that Michkov's line mates have not thus
Well,
far.
this is where I can go back and be a jerk and say, okay, if you wanted to jettison Joel Farabee, okay, I give you that one. Why did you jettison Morgan Frost? Why? What was the reason? What did you get back in return? What do you have to show for it now? Nothing. You got cap space. You think Michkov could play with Frost? Do you think that would be creative? Yeah, I do.
I do too. Now, I know both of them happen to have had a really good game the other night,
Yeah.
but
I'm just saying, like, these are
Calgary.
things, these are choices that get made and they affect you.
Yeah, and I think it is hard when you don't have the exact right kind of line mate to work with. And so I do think there is a roadblock in the way for Michkov in a lot of ways. I think the upheaval in terms of the coaching change, there's something to that as well. And I think the consistency in Montreal and the fact that they've been building a system over the last several years that stayed consistent, it is something there as well.
I remember there was a line of Tippett, Frost, and Michkov at one time.
Mm-hmm.
Just saying.
Yeah, but I do think the coaching has something to do with
no,
it
it does.
as well.
It does. But again, like, it's definitely coaching. There's definitely a player development thing where Montreal is developing at a little higher rate. And unfortunately, in this league, margins are close. Like, that's all it takes.
Right. And so I guess then the question becomes, like, is there a way to develop him further in a similar vein as Demidov is with the personnel that the Flyers have right
Yeah.
now?
Take somebody else off the top power play, put him on the top power play, leave him on the top power play. Don't shelter his minutes in the third period and kind of use him at the end of the third period, heading into overtime. Give him more 5-on-5 minutes. Let him succeed, let him fail. Some of that's going to have to happen.
Yeah. I think we've talked about the whole let him play through it attitude, where that's what the coaches have said, but that's not what the coaches have done. Both
Right.
coaches that
Right.
he's played under thus far. And I think, there's a little bit of disingenuousness there on the part of,
like I always say, I never go by what the coach
coaches.
says. I always look at the minutes first. And eventually the conversation catches up, as we've shown on this show. Eventually it gets there.
Yeah, so there is a path forward here. It's just like, let him play through it for 10 solid games and
Yeah.
don't make any panic changes. And let's see where he's at, and then fine tune his
Now,
game as well.
The one part that shows up that you could say was conditioning was Michkov has more shifts than Demidov. And that's the conditioning. They see that he's not as effective. They take him off early in the year because of what was going on. That checks out. That checks out in the stats.
It absolutely does. But I think this is going to be one of the more critical storylines to follow this season, especially as we, work under the assumption that Porter Martone is likely to come in the next year. And theoretically, they're on the same side of the ice. So what does that mean for both of them? Right? Right? That's going to become a question.
Yeah. Who's the new top prospect? Is it Michkov, or now is it Martone and not Michkov?
Yeah, good questions, of course. We are going to be facing the New Jersey Devils for the first time this season, and we are going to talk about them coming up next.
Let's be real. Making excuses doesn't solve anything. We've heard them all before. It's just stress. I'm tired. Or it happens to everyone sometimes. But when it comes to performance, sometimes your body just needs a little extra support, and that's where Rugiet comes in. Rugiet.com offers fast-acting, doctor-prescribed treatments for ED designed to help stop you making excuses and start making moves. Rugiet makes it easy to get started. You just connect with a board-certified doctor 100% online. No awkward waiting rooms, no in-person appointments. If prescribed, your treatment ships discreetly straight to your door. The process is fast, simple, and private, and it's all handled by real doctors. Visit Rugiet.com/LockedOnNHL to get 15% off your first order. That's Rugiet.com/LockedOnNHL. And don't forget to use our code LockedOnNHL so they know we sent you. Rugiet, stop making excuses and start making moves. The NBA is back, and there's no better place to get in on the action than FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. Even if you missed the start of the game or want to ride the hot hand, FanDuel has live bets on everything from who will score next to the fourth quarter comebacks. Plus, you can even combine your live bets into a same-game parlay for a shot at a bigger payout. It keeps every game exciting, especially when your team's making that late push. Again, I kind of like Donovan Mitchell being the leading scorer for the NBA here. Check out what the odds are. He's doing really well with Cleveland. Right now, FanDuel is giving new customers $300 in bonus bets when your first $5 bet wins. So head to FanDuel.com to sign up and play your game with FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA.
So the New Jersey Devils, I think it's the team we don't like to think about at all because they're consistently good. They're consistently irritating, but they are beatable. That's the thing, is that we've shown over the last couple of years, the Flyers have found ways to win against them really handily, usually in close games, and found ways to lose to them spectacularly
Yeah.
as well. They've gotten goalied for sure against the Devils recently, and that was a big part of what the Devils did this offseason, right? Where they signed Jake Allen to a 5-year deal at an incredible 1.8
Yeah, he gave
AAV,
him a
which is
deal. That tandem is one of the
bargain.
best. Yeah.
Yeah, one of the best, because then they signed Markstrom later to a 2-year extension. And so that kind of locked up their tandem, which is just, set
Yeah,
it
and
and forget
Allen's
it,
done
to be
really well.
honest.
I've watched some of his games.
Yeah, yeah, and so they also signed Luke Hughes to a pretty big deal that I think people thought was a little bit overinflated,
Could be.
but I think he has the potential to live up to it for
Yeah.
sure. We'll see.
Yeah, I think that's fair. I think over time it'll look cheaper regardless, but
Because of the cap going up,
because
but
of the
not,
cap.
kind of the same way we felt about the Owen Tippett
Yeah.
contract in a lot of ways. But they have had a lot of injuries this season as well, and managed to keep being successful regardless of those injuries, which is kind of wild. They did just get Connor Brown off IR and Dadonov off IR earlier this week. So that's good. But then, as we know, and we talked about a little bit yesterday, Jack Hughes had that hand surgery due to the accident, and he is currently on IR for them, which is a
Yeah.
big deal.
Yeah, it's a big deal. I mean, obviously he was having another great year. But they're kind of used to playing without Jack Hughes at this point.
They are.
They're lucky that Bratt and Heeshear can step up and not miss that much. They missed something. Don't get me wrong. He's a game breaker, but they, again, their blue line's still really good. They move the puck out fast. They're a faster team than the Flyers. They score more goals than the Flyers. So their differential is better than the Flyers. So these are things you have to look at. They're also undefeated in the shootout.
Yeah.
So because they have some sharks there too, even without Hughes, Bratt's amazing in the shootout. Like they they have other guys too. So this is not necessarily a game you want to go to overtime because, again, who has the least amount of regulation wins in the East? It's the Flyers. They have 4. And at some point that's going to come due. And if you go into another overtime game against even a team like the Devils, you're going to give a point back. So I think it's imperative they have to win this game in regulation, and I think they have to get a lead in this game. I think they have to start out strong on a Saturday night and get a lead.
Yeah. Now, we do know that they played last night against Florida on the road, right? That we don't know the results of that game as we're talking about them, but their previous game, they're on this Florida road trip. They lost pretty badly to the Lightning, who, to be fair, are playing lights
They're
out
on a heater right now. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So they lost 5-1. Markstrom was in net for
Didn't
that
look great. I
one.
watched some of that game. He did not look great.
Yeah, that was a really tough game for the Devils there. And the big factor in that game for me in watching it was obviously they went 0 for 4 on the power play.
Yeah.
And I think that is where the Flyers' good penalty kill is going to come into play, that they're really going to have to play buttoned up and not let the Devils get on the board on the man advantage, because that is kind of the Achilles heel of the Flyers going down earlier in games.
Yeah, I think this one will see Jake Allen.
Mhm.
But I kind of remember all of us going to New Jersey last year, seeing Jake Allen beat the Flyers in a
That
really
is correct. I remember that game.
in a really good effort by Jake Allen. So
Yes.
like this is no day off just because you have him. So I think you have to get a lead, especially with them coming off the back-to-back. I think that's imperative. I think you have to win in regulation. I think you have to get a lead to be able to be on the path to doing that.
Right. And I just think that this is also one of those teams where, you mentioned the blue line, and we've always seen a lot of blue line scoring from the Devils against the Flyers
Yeah.
in the past. It just always seems that way, or like depth player scoring there. So, looking at you, Luke Glendening, looking at you, Andre Palat, right? Like,
Yeah, Palat's back in there now, and
yeah.
he's not the guy he used to be, but can he come up with some clutch scoring? Yeah, he definitely can. I mean, Dawson Mercer is a big guy to watch. He's kind of like that extra guy that you forget about sometimes. And Simone Nemec
Mhm.
is really having a terrific year. Like he
He
has really
is.
blossomed offensively. So between Hughes and Nemec and Hamilton, like that's a lot of offense from the blue line.
Right. It absolutely is. And I think, that's where like set plays are going to come into it
Yeah.
against, like, the Flyers cannot give up set play opportunities here. They have to either win the faceoff outright or battle once that faceoff is lost to prevent a high quality shot.
Yeah.
Like on set plays in the offensive zone.
And they could be heavy. Like Timo Meyer could be hard to handle on the boards. He's not the most physical, but to get the puck away from him is hard.
Right.
So, there's going to be that. You have Artemi Grishuk, who, they'll have dueling Russians on both sides of the ice on this one. And he's had a pretty good year. Like this is a good debut for him. And I think, what does he have? 10 points in 19 games. That's not bad. I think he's done better of late too. So again, this is something where, yes, it's a winnable game, but you have to watch out for the Devils. You have to respect what they have on the blue line. You have to play really clean hockey.
Yeah, and they're gonna have to, contain the Devils' speed. And
Yes.
they're gonna have to
That's a big deal.
force the game to slow down a bit, in order to give the Flyers a chance to get up ice. And the few players that the Flyers have that are fast, they're gonna have to take advantage of that and have the trailers keep up.
Yeah, it's going to be a hard game to block shots because I see the Devils going around guys who could block shots because
Yeah.
they can do that. And so like on the power play, sure, you could block, on penalty kill rather, you could block shots. But 5-on-5 is going to be a little more difficult to do that.
It is. It really is, but it should be an exciting one. And of course, like we talked about on yesterday's show, there's going to be some additional tributes to Bernie Parent at the game. So
Yeah.
that should be really good as well. That will do it for today's show. Thanks so much for listening. And as a reminder, we always want to hear from you. So make sure you send in those mailbag questions or Flyers thoughts to any of our socials at Locked On Flyers. You can email us at lockedonflyers@gmail.com or comment on our YouTube channel. I'm Rachel. I'm on Blue Sky and Twitter at rmiriam. That's RMIRIAM.
I'm Russ. I'm at Sportsology on the same socials, SPORTSOLOGY.
Thanks for making Locked On Flyers your first listen. Today, for your next listen, check out the all-new Locked On NHL Game Night. It's every game, every night until a Stanley Cup champion is crowned. You can get local analysis on a national scale with NHL Game Night on Locked On NHL on YouTube or wherever you listen to podcasts. Have a great day, everyone.